Hi, welcome to our flip video lesson. We are on 3.02, Britain Begins the Industrial Revolution. This goes along with your Human Odyssey reading pages 445 to 457 and your student guide pages 295 to 303. Lesson Introduction. Britain begins the Industrial Revolution. Why did some parts of the world replace human and animal power with machines in the 1700s? While others are still not industrialized today? The answer is complicated. Industry requires resources or raw materials to turn into finished products. It requires a lot of workers as well as fuel for factories. Someone must have the money to buy equipment and pay for labor. Many people must have the money and desire to buy the product. And that is only the beginning. England had all the right factors for industry before the end of the 18th century. What happened there was a revolution, the Industrial Revolution. And remember, the 18th century is the 1700s to 1799. Learning objectives for this lesson. Many of these objectives are covered in detail in the readings from your Human Odyssey book, pages 445 to 457. Define the Industrial Revolution. Describe the advances made in the textile industry in England in the 18th century. Again, remember the 18th century is the 1700s, 1700 to 1799. Describe the beginnings of coal and iron industries. Explain the significance of the steam engine to industry. Identify Adam Smith and what he was known for. Identify the achievements of individuals who made major contributions to the Industrial Revolution in England. Identify the factors that allowed the Industrial Revolution to begin first in England. Recognize that the changes in manufacturing brought hardships to many people, and summarize the major ideas of the Wealth of Nations. We're going to begin on your student guide to page 300. So flip to page 300 of your student guide, this book here, this blue book. Okay, and we'll start with question number 1. And this slide covers questions 1 through 4. If industry is how things are made and a revolution is an extreme change, then an industrial revolution is a transformation in how goods are manufactured, an extreme change in the way people work and live, and a new way of making products. The Industrial Revolution replaced human and animal power with machine power. During the Industrial Revolution, people moved from the country to cities. In addition, factories replaced homes or houses as the centers of production. The Industrial Revolution began in Great Britain, also known as England. And as we're going through this lesson, I just want you to think about the Industrial Revolution of the 1700s and perhaps how you can see some similarities in what's going on today in our world. Numbers 5 and 6, Adam Smith. Adam Smith was born in Scotland or Great Britain. He wrote a book called The Wealth of Nations, and today is considered to be the father of modern economics, or just economics itself. Smith believed that the actions of government often hurt the proper functioning of the economy. An example of this government action is the imposition of special taxes, or duties, on imported goods. Numbers 7, 8, and 9, The Wealth of Nations. In The Wealth of Nations, Smith wrote that markets produce the things that societies needed because of the operation of the invisible hand. This idea forms the basis of a capitalist or market economy. According to Smith, the economy worked best when consumers and producers acted in their own self-interest. Smith also believed that groups of businessmen, known as monopolies, could also hurt the economy. He thought monopolies would fix prices, or in other words, set prices that were not market prices. Questions number 10, 11, 12, and 13. The Industrial Revolution begins. The Industrial Revolution began in the textile industry. John Kay invented the flying shuttle, and James Hargreaves invented the spinning jenny. Richard Arkwright's water frame could make stronger thread than the spinning jenny, and it could make 80 strands at once. Edmund Cartwright invented a mechanical loom powered by a horse or a water wheel. Questions number 14, 15, and 16, the iron industry. Coal was an important source of power that lay beneath England's central and northern hills. a resource important to the development of the iron industry. Underground springs often flooded coal mines and had to be pumped out with a crude steam engine known as the miner's friend. James Watt was the University of Glasgow student asked to repair one of those broken down engines in 1763. This Scottish student went on to invent his own improved piston-driven steam engine that could power all kinds of machines and gave a huge boost to the Industrial Revolution. Number 17 and 18, Samuel Slater. An English immigrant to the United States named Samuel Slater brought with him extensive knowledge of textile machinery. He built America's first successful cotton mill. Because of steam power, ships no longer had to depend on wind and mills. They no longer had to use water for power. Steam-powered machines could work at rates faster than human power ever could. Question number 19, disadvantages. Despite its advantages, the Industrial Revolution also brought many hardships, such as long 14-hour workdays and child labor. Short answer questions. The great change in the Industrial Revolution. What was so revolutionary about the Industrial Revolution? In other words, what was the great change that came about because of the Industrial Revolution? The Industrial Revolution changed the way people worked because machine power replaced human and animal power. Which countries did the Industrial Revolution first affect? England, and then other countries in Europe, and then North America. Even though the Industrial Revolution began in the 18th century, not all countries today have undergone an Industrial Revolution. Why not? And this is because they lack the factors necessary for industrialization, such as fuel, a workforce, markets, raw materials, and visionaries and inventors. This is on page 297, Why Britain? So you're going to need to flip back. Page 297 in this book, so move back from the reading guide to page 297. And there's a chart there. Here, let me open up mine just to show you really quickly. There is a chart that you need to fill in using this information. Here's the blank chart, what it looks like. And then use the information on this slide to help you fill it in. I'd like you to do this during our class time. So abundant water power was used. So these are factors that led to the Industrial Revolution in Britain. So abundant water power was used to drive machines. Textile industry inventions such as the flying shuttle, spinning jenny, mechanical loom, and the water frame helped to obviously, promote as well. And we're going down on the left-hand side here, as you can see in your chart. You're going down these boxes on the left-hand side. We're now in this last box. Okay. Good harbors and ships for exporting or free trade, or for importing raw materials. Remember, export means to go out, import means to come in. And then underneath the little Scotland, England map there, plentiful supplies of coal for powering Britain's new machines, growing city populations for a supply of labor for the factories and mills, Smith supporters, meaning Adam Smith, in government who lifted duties to let trade flow freely and encourage businessmen. Okay, and then we're back up here on the top right there. Okay, with banks were willing to lend money or capital in support of new business schemes, businessmen prepared to take risks, and then plentiful supplies of iron ore for the manufacture of tools, parts, for looms and jennies and other machines. Okay, that's one. And then there should have been a space here where it says inventors. So then the last one is inventors and thinkers. Inventors and thinkers such as Adam Smith, Kay Hargreaves, Arkwright, Cartwright, and Watt. And so all of these people were the inventors and thinkers that helped to influence the Industrial Revolution in Britain. I'll give you another minute to make sure that's all filled in. And if you don't have time, please make sure you go back and fill that in. And then these are optional pages. You do not have to do these, but they are suggested. This is a wealth of nations, a wealth meaning The Wealth of Nations. So this is on pages 298 and 299. So again, we revert back to prior history to move forward in current history. So you've probably read books such as the plays of Shakespeare or King James Version of the Bible that are written in an older kind of English that sounds strange to the modern ear. Well, Adam Smith didn't exactly live in the days of King James, but he did live more than 100 years ago. And back then, the English that the people spoke wasn't what we would call modern. So not surprisingly, therefore, Smith's Wealth of Nations uses language that may at first seem hard to understand, but with a little work, it's not too difficult to figure out what he was saying and then translate it into today's English. So if you take a look on page 450 of your textbook, your Human Odyssey textbook, the greatest improvements in the production powers of labor seem to have been the effects of the division of labor. Today we might say something like this: the best way to get improved results from workers is to have each of them perform a different task in the manufacturing process. So then you can translate on your own. Again, this is optional. You can translate things that were said. And I have answers there. You don't need to use those answers. You can use your own wording. But that part in blue shows the answers of what that sentence was really trying to mean, or what really means to us now in our modern language. Okay, and again, you can do this on your own. And then this is an optional activity, which I would highly encourage you to do in Grandma's Day. I would highly encourage you to do this activity with one of the oldest members of your family, and then have them role play the grandmother to answer the question. So, obviously none of your family members were here before the Industrial Revolution. That's way long past. But if you choose the oldest member in your family, I'm sure they can give you some very valuable information about how they feel a grandmother in those times would answer. So a fun activity for you to do with your family. Okay, so we come to the end of this flip video lesson. The end, do or do not. There is no try. Thank you for joining me today.